at the international level, that's what they run. So I think the collegiate system is, trying to match that. And I think that 3K is here to stay. I don't think you'll see it go back to 2K at all.
Well, Amy, and you and I certainly were around when the steeplechase for women was introduced to the sport of track and field, and I think all along, the women wanted that equality. It was only a men's event for a long time. Then the women got it, and then the pole vault, of course. We remember Stacy Dragila, how she took that event to another level. But talk about the evolution of the steeplechase really over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, really, we've seen in the last 10 years, I think, it just explode. I think initially you saw women were a little bit shy because of the barriers and, not sure of technique and so forth. But we now have coaches that are well-versed in the event, and we have athletes that specialize in it. This is their event. They don't do anything else. And like I said earlier, the technique has become so important. You see someone like Emma Coburn, who got the bronze medal in Rio. Her technique is one of the best in the world, and obviously she's naturally talented, but she works very hard at it as well.
Well, this is not an event you do in high school. It's something that if you decide to do it at the high school level, it's something that you're doing in a club team or taking you away from your high school to do it. But when you look at this type of athlete, not everybody can do this event because there is some skill in the individual hurdling. There is some skill navigating the water jump, but all the same distance and endurance components apply as any long distance runner. Where do you find the most athletes? Where do they come from? The 1,500 meters, or do they come from the 5K?
I think you can split it about 50-50. A lot of these girls, are not. They're right on the cusp of the 1,500 or right on the cusp of the 5K, and hey, let's go try a steeplechase and see what happens. And then they end up, getting hooked, or have a great first one, for a second one, and they get hooked and they realize that they can score points for their team, and just go from there.
What is so amazing and remarkable and really entertaining as a spectator of this event is when you have 15, 16 bodies. Look at the spacing, legs flying up as they cross these barriers. I mean, the spacing is so critical, knowing where you are comfortable and avoiding the contact. I mean, it really is remarkable to see.
It is remarkable because these girls are not training on barriers every single day. They're doing workouts, like a 1,500 meter or a 5K runner would do most of the time, and then they're adding in hurdles in some of their workouts, not all of them. And then there are specific days when it is a barrier day. And then I know teams that do, pack and work on that so that they don't have a fall, and then they're comfortable being in a pack and going over barriers. So, schools that have several athletes doing this event are practicing that.
The early leader from Virginia Tech is Sara Edwards, a freshman. Stoner in there for Syracuse. Paige Stoner, the sophomore, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. She was an ACC indoor bronze medalist in the 5,000. She's in that number 2 spot.
There's a nice little group there starting to separate already, just a couple laps in.
The tall runner on the outside is Ellie Abramson for Wake Forest. She had the fastest qualifying time this year in the ACC at a 10:09.59. Sitting comfortably at 4th.
Yeah, she'd be considered the favorite coming in here, and looks like she's just kind of letting the pace, someone else do some of the work here, and we'll see as the race goes on. Does she make one big move, or does she wait, to the final?
Let's talk a little bit about the technique of the water jump, and I think the misconception with people not in the sport is, you jump on the barrier in front of the water jump and you clear the water, but that's not how you do it, right?
It's really, really hard, actually. You have to, time that perfectly, getting your foot on the barrier, and then picking that spot where you do land so that you can propel yourself from that landing instead of falling back. So it is an art, the water barrier. The leaders look pretty comfortable here. And you see Virginia Tech 1 and 2 again.
ABRAHAMSON of Wake Forest, making her living on the outside there, just on the outer portion of lane number 1, sitting in that 4 spot as they approach the water again.
And you see her going a little bit wide on the water. She is a little bit taller than some of the other athletes. So she's just wanting to pick her spot and not run into any problems coming off of that.
Finishing second and taking home the silver medal for the Duke Blue Devils with a height of 5.27 meters, 17 feet 3.5 inches.
And you see those top 4, that pretty good technique, getting over pretty effortlessly.
Well, and that's really the key here in the steeplechase, is hurdling with very little effort, so you can conserve your strength, but at the same time continue your forward motion. And so these young athletes are taught how to accelerate into the hurdle, and it's always interesting to me to see distance coaches coaching the hurdles. And you know, maybe when you start doing the, start training athletes for the steeplechase, you're not a very good hurdle coach, and as a hurdler and somebody who's coached the hurdles as well, it's like you want to help out, you want to help the steeplechasers, but you realize, like, no, you know what, the distance coaches are going to figure this whole thing out.
So typically the hurdling coaches don't help much in this realm.
Not really, and I think it's because you train your distance runners at different times of the day in a different location on the track. Occasionally a distance coach will come to a sprint hurdle coach and say, hey, can you help us out a little bit? But the technique is very different than the 110-meter hurdles or the 400-meter hurdles. So you're certainly working with a different kind of an athlete.
See everybody using that barrier as a launch pad on the water to propel forward.
Well, and you'll see in the men's race, and certainly in the international level, where a lot of guys will just hurdle that barrier and go straight to the water. They won't put their foot on there if they've got if they're coming in there with quite a bit of speed.
Yeah, you always have to make that call coming into that barrier, and
because once you commit,
exactly.
You're in.
Well,
Exactly.
and you don't want to get stuck in between. Am I going to put the foot on the barrier? Am I going to hurdle it? And then halfway through, you think, well, maybe I'll get my foot on, and you don't make it, and that's when you end up on runner space or flow track.
Exactly. Swimming. There's a group of 5 here. Obviously Abramson is the favorite. She looks quite strong, quite smooth, but it's a nice pack. And
you see the women's updated team standings. Duke still holding serve with 56. Virginia Tech at 43.5. You see a couple of Hokies toward the top in this steeplechase. Remember, these are team points. This is a finals event, so very easily Virginia Tech could overcome Duke here in the steeplechase if their 2 runners keep performing. They hit the straightaway. They will have 2 more laps to go here in the 3,000 steeplechase.
this is going to be a fun last 2 laps. This is a great group here. It's going to probably come down to speed here. Ellie Abramson's run 4:25 for 1,500, so not too shabby.
Yeah, as you just watch, right now she's the one that I would be picking to finish up these last 2 laps and take home the top honors here. She looks comfortable. She's had her space on that outer half of the lane.
Yeah, she does look very comfortable, and she doesn't seem to mind how, she's running quite wide for most of the race.
Right.
But like I said, she's quite a bit taller, and I think she just feels comfortable out there and a little safer. You see her making a move here now.
I was going to say, as her coach, what would you tell her, and when do you think the right time to try to get away from this group would be?
Well, I think, she's about 13 seconds ahead of the next athlete on paper time-wise, but in a championship race, that just goes out the window. So I think in this race, it's with the barriers, you make one move and you go from home.
Sara Edwards of Virginia Tech, the freshman, in her first ACC Outdoor Championship, took the early lead. She held that lead for a good number of laps, and as they hit the bell lap, she's toe-to-toe with Ellie Abrahamson.
And Paige still.
A Wake Forest runner with an extensive background in triathlon competitions, a lot of triathlon training, trying to bring home the gold for Wake.
This is going to be a little interesting here. They're starting to lap some runners going into the barriers. These runners are running a little slower. They're a little more tired.
So here come the leaders. You see Pitt step aside. It's turned into a 3-runner race. Stoner of Syracuse third, Edwards of Virginia Tech second. Everybody chasing Abrahamson of Wake Forest.
Last water jump, Paige Stoner went a little wide there, trying to make a big move.
Can Stoner find a little crevice to break through? She was kind of boxed out on that curve. Edwards stumbles a little bit, regains the composure, and look at the kick by the freshman as she takes home first place for Virginia Tech.
Wow, that's huge. Great, great run.
I can't wait to see the replay. Initially, it didn't look like a clean jump on that last barrier. It almost looked like she stumbled just a bit.
I mean, of the 3 athletes, she looked like she was working the hardest coming into the water jump here.
Now, it looked like
She
Stoner,
landed, yeah.
she looked like she was in position, but then
Yeah.
she kind of gets bottled out here on this kern where she couldn't get by.
Exactly.
Well, all 3 athletes came into the final barrier with a lot of speed. You just don't want to slow down. But Sara Edwards on the inside found another gear with 50 meters to go.
Yeah, she just, I mean, that was sheer will right there. Her legs are tired. But she knew she needed those points for the team. So great, great victory.
10:05.58. That is the fastest time in the ACC this year. Some really good times turned in by those top 3 runners.
It's great to see a freshman, running so well at the end of the season. Freshman year is so hard, and to see a freshman come in and win a conference championship.
Let's hear from the young athlete right now. She's with Melanie Newman.
Thank you so much. Sara, you just won in the final event for the Steeplechase today. This is one of the toughest events out here on the track, and you really came out with a strong kick at the end. What are you facing when you go through this event?
It's a little bit of everything, you know. It's distance, but you have to have the coordination to be able to hurdle, and you have to be able to fight it out at the end.
There's a lot that's going on, especially on the infield at this particular track. How do you maintain that focus?
I don't know. I can't tell anything that's going on around me when I'm running. I was just running, looking over at my coach for splits, and that's all that mattered.
When you finally finished, you turned around and you threw up a heart to some people over on the sidelines. Who is that in particular?
My parents are here today, which I'm really excited about. I'm from Massachusetts, so it was a long trek for them to be here. And then one of my very first basketball coaches is here because he's coaching basketball, just a little bit of serendipity, and I haven't seen him in ages, and it's so nice to have him here to support me tonight.
How special is that to have a crossover sport and those people that follow you?
Oh, it's amazing. The people who helped me along the way, I honestly believe I wouldn't be the athlete I am today. I wouldn't be able to do steeple if I didn't do basketball, soccer, softball, all that stuff. So it's great to know they're still supporting me even though I've left those sports.
They are definitely supporting the champ tonight, Sara. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Right.
One of the great aspects of the ACC Track and Field Championships, the surprise stories, a glimpse of the future, the freshman face of Sara Edwards, your steeplechase champ.